Today's date is March 23rd, 2014. Our location is 1461 Silver Lake Boulevard. This is Richard Golden. I am interviewing Ric Montejano, and we are also here with Marco Larson. So, welcome, Ric.
Thank you.
First, as we start our interview, could you just state your name?
My name is Ric Montejano.
And what is your current address?
1461 Silver Lake Boulevard.
And how long have you lived in Silver Lake?
Since 1972.
And when were you born and where were you born?
I was born September 22nd, 1949 in San Gabriel.
And what were your parents' names?
My parents' names were Richard and Anita Montejano.
Where were they from?
He was born here, but my mom was born in Mexico.
And what was your father's job?
He sort of bounced around a lot. He ended up as a banker.
And did your mother work?
She worked when I was really little. She worked in factories and like at Mattel.
So when you first moved here to Los Angeles, where did you first live?
I lived in the corner of Wilshire and Veteran in a castle.
And how long did you live there?
I lived there about 2 years.
And why did you first move to Los Angeles?
I've always felt comfortable here, and I go away to other places, and it always just draws me back.
Because you used to visit Los Angeles a lot when you lived and grew up in San Gabriel, correct?
Well, I didn't grow up in San Gabriel. I was born there. I was raised in Van Nuys and deepest, darkest Orange County.
Okay. But Los Angeles was your closest city. And so you lived in the first place for 2 years. Where did you move to then?
I moved to this really interesting place, hasn't changed, still as dumpy as ever, on Griffith Park Boulevard, where there were 6 cottages. And throughout my time up there, I had friends in 4 or 5 of the 6, really good friends.
And so when you first moved to Los Angeles, and during this time, what were you doing for work?
I think I was a waiter.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I know I was a waiter for a long time.
Oh, okay. And so what attracted you first to move to Silver Lake?
Well, when I moved to Silver Lake, it was in 1972, and it was just like this sweet little oasis, quiet and sleepy, a lot of trees, interesting neighbors, and that's what drew me here.
Okay. What was the population like at that time?
Population was Hispanic, gays, straights, a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How would you put it in terms of economic class?
Economic class, it was middle class and lower middle class.
And so this is in 1972, so the early start of sort of the gay sexual times. And,
yeah.
Was that evident around here?
It was so explosive. There used to be 15 bars within 10 minutes away from here, gay bars that were open, 7 nights a week. So that could tell you a little bit about the population. Now there, I think, are only 2. But it was high times.
Yeah. And how long did that continue?
It continued for really I remember the 80s a lot, it was a great time for everybody, There was the One Way, the best bar in the world, forever, with Jim Van Tyne playing music, and you had Leathermen, but then you had this really nice meshing of Leathermen and punks, and everybody just wanted to knock boots. It was really good.
And how did the different populations within Silver Lake get along with each other at that time?
I think there was a little resentment from this Hispanic community that we were moving in, and that played itself out a number of times with confrontations.
And physical violence?
Yeah.
Violence, both?
Yes.
Okay. So do you think it was a question of a sexual difference or gentrification?
I think it was both. I think gentrification is often a gay term because we're there first and bring it up.
So sometimes you think the two are intertwined, and sometimes gentrification is a code word.
Yes.
For sexuality when it's not being said.
Really, or you gay people moving in.
Now you mentioned that at one time there were 7 bars in one small area, and now you said there were 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Did that happen slowly over time? Was there a sudden change where those
I think
disappeared?
When we got hit with the Holocaust of AIDS, many people died, and today it's like you try to get somebody to understand the scope, and because my friends were dying left and right,
So you think that was if not the sole, at least the primary cause of the disappearance?
Yes.
Okay. But in these times now, in 2014, these bars haven't really come back. We haven't gone back to that.
No, we haven't.
That era. And do you have an idea why that is?
Because I think that the people who populate those bars died or left, and the bars couldn't, couldn't chop up the business,
Right. And you don't think that the younger gays that you see who live here are as bar oriented?
They might be, but I really don't know. I know they're, a very successful bar here for young folk.
Did you feel as though, just in a personal sense, when you first moved here and used to walk around the neighborhood, that there were just more gay people walking around?
Oh yeah, it was just all the time. I mean, it was just like you go to the laundromat, you go to the grocery store, and maybe it's a little bit like this now, but not like it was back then. So many gay people were buying real estate in the hills,
Because they could afford real estate in the hills then.
They could. Yeah.
Did you have a wide circle of friends who lived in this area with you?
I had many good friends. Well, God, it's like... when you talk about friends, you think about people you really, really want to be around, and there were so many in the neighborhood at that time, not at this. Well, it's just more people like you.
Mm-hmm. As in similar.
Yes.
To you. And you don't feel that now?
I don't feel that now. I mean, I feel that it's a nice mix. Everybody seems to get along, and I've met many people outside my little focus.
Mm-hmm. And you've seen a lot of changes, I imagine, just on Silver Lake Boulevard.
Oh, God, yeah. I remember when the market shop was an actual grocery store, and they used to have bins with potatoes, and it was like a grocery store,
Now you just have the sign.
Yeah, now you just have the sign. And it's become quite trendy of late with the oyster bar and that kind of stuff. I guess I'm lucky to be here still, because if I had to move out, I could not afford to live in this neighborhood.
Did you feel that when you first moved here, it had a more sort of eclectic groups of people? Did you have more artists, people who are usually attracted and living in areas with lower rents?
Well, yeah, I was always I was a theater director for many years, still am, and that all gravitated to creative people, and we all did projects.
The people who lived in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you feel that that's changed? Do you feel that that's been lost to some extent?
A little bit lost. Yeah.
And is that partially, you think, just a question of what the rents are?
Yeah.
What it costs to live here?
Exactly. I mean, when you get to lower income housing, that's where people who are doing things and not doing things for money live,
Yeah. So you've seen the trade-off.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned that earlier you had worked in restaurants.
Yes.
When you first moved here, what kind of work were you doing?
I worked at the Gap in Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills.
Were you a jean folder?
Yes, I was, and a very good one.
Oh, great. This is in the day when the Gap was just
This
jeans.
was the day when the Gap was, And Beverly Hills, that was a weird place to work. A lot of celebrities,
Coming to the Gap.
Yeah, coming to the Gap.
I think it was fall into the Gap.
Fall into the Gap. You're right.
I do remember that. It's a generational thing. And what other kinds of jobs did you have?
Then I went on to the waitering, had a long career in waitering. Mm-hmm. Waited tables in Pasadena a lot. And the worst restaurant I've ever worked in, ever eaten in, here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What restaurant was that?
Oh, it's called Juanito's. And the owner was this 90-year-old hag who smoked incessantly. This is when he was smoking cigarettes. And she had a little toy poodle which had mange on it 90% of the time. And she was, I guess, a sugar mama to the bartender, who wore the tightest pants I have ever seen. You could see everything. It was quite a show.
That's quite that joke.
Yeah, she would go coughing through the restaurant with this mangy little dog. And sometimes, I mean, the food was so bad, I'd be there for a whole lunch shift and nobody would come in.
Oh, I was going to ask, did you ever have to actually serve anymore?
Not many.
So, and you mentioned that you do a lot of directing in theater. How did
Yes.
you get into that?
That started really young, when I was in high school, and then I went on to go to college and had a very, very good education in theater at Cal State Fullerton. And, LA is just a skip away from, let's go put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did.
It's like a Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland.
Well,
maybe not quite. So it was you sort of as a self-starter and putting on shows.
I mean, it's so cheap then. You could do it for, $1,000.
And what kind of, were there small theaters available?
Oh God, yeah, they were tiny theaters. They were ridiculously small theaters, but you got to do your thing,
Uh-huh. And as far as you know, are those kind of theaters still around? Are they still?
Not like back then. It was like little tiny shoebox theaters, 35 seats. The theaters around now are bigger.
So, if you would say physically, in terms of the buildings and the landscape of Silver Lake, what's been the biggest change that you've noticed?
Well, the traffic for one, and as you know, we live on a very busy street. Daytimes it's terrible, but it's really interesting how at nighttime it just quiets down.
Mm-hmm. The whole area around where on Hyperion, where Gelson's and Trader Joe's is. When you first moved here, I imagine that whole area was very...
Yeah, the Gelson's was in Mayfair. Trader Joe's was a supermarket called The Hub that specialized in meat. Yes.
And was MJ's always there at that time, or was there always a bar in that location?
There was always a bar.
Through different names and different...
Through different names, yes.
And right on the across from MJ's on that corner, where across from Gelson's.
Okay.
Was there at some time some sort of sex club or something that was there?
At one time there were, let me count them, 4 sex clubs on Hyperion.
Really? All right around that area?
Yeah.
And should I assume that now there are none? Or are there any that still left?
No, none of them are left.
Did they all close fairly close together? Was there just a time when they all disappeared, all that disappeared?
Yeah, it's when the guys started disappearing.
Right. And so you don't see that kind of sexualized space around Silverlake as much as...
It was beautiful. Everybody was young. Everybody was beautiful. Everybody was happy. Things were really inexpensive on the side. Mm-hmm. Drugs were shared. It was amazing time. If you were a little bit off, move to Silver Lake. You fit in someplace.
Uh-huh.
And it really gave the neighborhood a nice vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe now Silver Lake is not the place for off people as much as it used to be?
I'm sure they're off in their own little ways, but not as off as the gay people were.
For a number of years, you've been selling lamps on the sidewalks outside your apartment, correct?
Yeah, I'm the lamp man.
The lamp man?
The lamp man.
How many years have you been doing that?
Well, I've been doing it for a long time. I used to do pieces of furniture, but then got lazy and decided to focus in on lamps.
Okay. So you meet a real cross-section of people who come by.
They're incredible. I have people dropping off lamps at my front door. There have been some fine pieces of furniture that people have left by my truck. I don't even know who these people are. Other signs of, can you sell this? And, I don't know who these people are. I just am very lucky.
Yeah. What kinds of people come by and buy lamps?
All kinds. It's like you're running. It's like you're running a department store, you know. And I've got a reputation of selling interesting things, so I got my regulars. And you know, I got people throwing business cards at me all the time, you know. But like I say, I'm kind of lazy.
Are they mostly individuals? You get some people who are doing production?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had somebody make me an offer on all the lamps that I had one day, and you know, calculating out, it just didn't read, you know.
Oh, and where do you get your lamps from?
You know, thrift stores, yard sales, estate sales. If I want to jump over people to get stuff, which I don't.
And as time has gone on, do you see has the kind of people, the population that you've seen going by you, has that changed at all over the years?
I think I'm getting more younger people now who have money.
Indicating that may be the rising group within Silverlake itself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And just interesting, do those young people with money, what kind of lamps do they generally like?
It's all in the unusual, you know. If you can find an unusual lamp, you're because let's face it, there's a lot of ugly lamps in the world.
Oh, okay. But I've heard they usually tend to like a retro, and you sell a lot of
retro, you know,
retro
and
lamps.
then I sell stuff from, I guess the 80s would be retro.
Mm-hmm.
But anything that good design, you know, it has to be good design, or else I won't pick it up.
Mm-hmm. We were talking earlier about the changes that occurred along Silver Lake Boulevard, and one of them, there was a battle years ago about an electronic sign, a billboard, on top of, I guess it would be on top of Montrese. It was right on the corner of right around Silver Lake and Effie. Hey, could you describe a little bit about what that battle was about?
I saw that sign as I was walking to the 7-Eleven, and it hurt. It really hurt that somebody would put that much electricity in such a fine neighborhood. And I said, I got to do something, but I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I went out and got a piece of paper, a poster board, and said on the poster board, "Hawk, if you hate this sign." And I stood out there for rush hour for a week, and everybody was honking. Everybody was honking. And so I said, I'm not a crazy person with a sign on the street, you know. People were feeling what I was feeling. And then I think I took 3 trips to City Hall to protest.
When you say to protest, what exactly does that mean? What did you do?
To protest the sign.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what you said? What did you do at City Hall? Were you holding up?
They don't listen to you. It's all for show. I mean, it's they give you 3 minutes, and you have a lot of wackos in there. So when you've got something serious, you know, everybody's talking to each other on the phone or not there, getting up from their chairs. You know, the city council is pretty lame.
Yeah. No, there's nothing like the illusion of inclusion.
Exactly.
But yet the sign is not functioning. So what exactly did you do?
I just kept calling and standing out there. And then the LA Weekly picked it up, and they put a picture of me with the sign, "Hawk, if you hate that sign." But it was really, I was kind of afraid to do it at first, but it was something that really meant a lot to keep that sign out of here. Because, you know, one sign, you get 2 signs, you get 3 signs, and no way is this place going to look like Las Vegas.
Is that what you meant when you said too much electricity?
Yeah.
Okay. What does the too much electricity represent? The loss of you, a loss of a kind of bucolic community?
Yeah. A little place where you're not blasted at, you know. It's a neighborhood. And I think the neighborhood came together because it's down, and I don't think it'll ever go up again.
And for all the changes, do you think that Silver Lake is still in ways, the bucolic community that you wanted, or has that been lost?
It's changed, it's morphed. Like I say, there were a lot of gay people around when I was in my early teens, and it was really nice to be part of a community.
Mm-hmm.
It was like when the bars were going, it was like, you know, if you wanted to hear country music, you go to a country music bar, you know. If the boys there didn't interest you, you go to a punk bar, you know. And, you know, there's sleaze bars. There were all kind of, they were prissy bars, you know. It was incredible. Any mood you felt, you know, there was a bar for you.
So it's a different community.
Yeah, it's a different community. It's like when you grow older, you fall out of a lot of things, but then you fall into other things because you have to, because you need to fill the spaces. You know?
Right. So in its way, it's your own community, your personal community that's been lost.
Yeah, my brothers.
Mm-hmm. Whatever changes have occurred in Silver Lake over the years, your love of this place has actually inspired you to have the word Silver Lake inscribed onto your own body. You have a large Silver Lake tattoo.
I have a large Silver Lake tattoo. And it's like when you get a tattoo, I think it should be something you want to carry with you for the rest of your life and not be ashamed, embarrassed, you know, what the fuck was I doing? It should be something you really love and you know you're going to love forever. So yeah, I did get Silver Lake tattooed to my back. The tattooist, when he was doing it, he asked me, do you got others? And I said, other whats? And he said, tats. And I said, no. And he said, well, let me tell you, they usually start with something smaller. So it was a big tattoo.
Okay, approximately how large is it? How large
It's,
is it?
you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and when did you get the tattoo?
God, I don't even remember.
Have you had it for a long time?
Yeah, I've had it for a long time.
And you were sure enough back then?
I was sure enough, man. This was home. This was everything. This was family. This was independence. It was so many things. And I try to keep it that way to this day, you know.
So you carry the tattoo on your back as you carry Silver Lake with you always.
Oh, yeah. You know, I keep thinking about, if you could move, where would you move? And, you know, Portland's too cold. You know, there's always something wrong in my mind. And California, Southern California, when you've lived here all of your life, from orange groves everywhere, you know, to, I mean, there were orange groves around Disneyland. It was wild.
Plus, you don't want to live somewhere with a long name, because then you got a long tattoo to put on you again. And then,
Really?
So go for short. Go to Seattle. Try something like that.
Seattle.
Just for the letters. And so, when you look at that tattoo, you think, yeah, after all this time, I still love it.
I love it. I will always love it. From the moment I hit Silver Lake and grew to know what a special place it was, I just knew.
But does Silver Lake still the place that it was for you when you first moved here?
It's not, but it's still a comfortable place for me. It's I've pretty much went with the flow of what was around you, because you can't do anything about it. Change is inevitable for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it has nice memories, and it was so quiet and leafy.
Do you find it neither quiet nor leafy anymore? You say that so wistfully.
I don't find it as quiet anymore. And the leafy is different. The leafy is new leafy as opposed to old leafy.
Is that what every generation says? It looks back on leafiness?
Leafiness, yes.
Thank you so much. Rick, I want to thank you so much for joining us and telling us your story, both the story of Silver Lake and your own personal story.
Thank you.